What if I told you that medieval people didn't eat breakfast at all, and that when they finally did eat, it wasn't tea in the morning? Before we unlock this forbidden truth, hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment about what you eat for breakfast today, because the story you're about to hear is not just about food. It is about control, about secrets, and about the history they buried in archives they never wanted you to see. Picture this. The year is 1320. Dawn breaks in a muddy village. The air is cold, damp, heavy, with the stench of manure and wood smoke. The rooster crows, but no one stirs toward food. Instead, men and women shuffle out to work, hungry, their stomachs aching. The peasant picks up his plow, the woman hauls water, the children gather firewood, a bowl of barley gruel or hard bread, one tea come until the sun is high. The village bell tolls not to invite food, but to summon prayer. You see, in the Middle Ages, to eat early was not merely frowned upon, it was forbidden, condemned as weakness, as sin. Why? Because in medieval Europe, food was never just food. It was politics, it was theology, it was control. The church taught that eating before morning prayers was gluttony. Tommy, nobles, and clergy declared that strong men must endure hunger before labor. Only children, the sick, and outcasts ate early. A hungry peasant was obedient, his will bent, his body disciplined. And so Europe fasted through its mornings, not because there was no food, but because power demanded silence over hunger. We know this not only from chronicles, but from suppressed documents hidden inside a 14th century household. Manual called the Book of Secrets appear strange marginal notes, while the main text discusses herbs and recipes. The margins warn against eating before terce, the third hour after sunrise, roughly 9 in the morning. Another warns, morning meals belong to infants and peasants, not men. These weren't simply medical beliefs, they were commandments woven into everyday life, disguised as wisdom. But here is where the conspiracy sharpens. In 1872, a scholar in Rome reported finding a Vatican letter from the 14th century. Its content was explosive. It instructed priests to forbid early meals, warning eating before prayer weakens fasting, emboldens disobedience, threatens the faith. His findings briefly appeared in print, then disappeared. His access to archives revoked, his career destroyed. Why censor a letter about breakfast, unless breakfast itself threatened the order of things, unless controlling the first meal was a way of controlling the people themselves? And then came the Black Death between 1347 and 1351. Half of Europe perished, bodies stacked in carts, priests chanted over mass graves. Rumors spread. Did hunger weaken the body? Did fasting leave peasants too frail to fight disease? Whispers said yes. But the official story declared otherwise. Plague was divine punishment, not the result of filth or starvation. But fragments survived. In 1362, a monk known only as Frater L. wrote a desperate letter. He warned that silence on hygiene and food had killed millions. He begged for peasants to eat earlier to survive. His letter was redacted, censored, nearly lost. Why? Because admitting that food, not sin, determined survival would shatter the authority of the church. Archaeology gives us even darker proof. Excavations in medieval cesspits, from London to Paris, revealed traces of what people actually ate: coarse barley, rye, beans, turnips, scraps of cheese, but not in the morning. Those pits show clear cycles of midday and evening meals. Meanwhile, noble cesspits reveal meats, wine, spices, and bread, sometimes linked to dawn feasting. The nobility broke the very rules they enforced. They feasted while peasants, starved. The divide between classes was etched not only in clothing and castles, but in the stomach. It was the hunger of millions that fueled the obedience of an empire. But here's the forbidden truth: other civilizations did not live this way. In China, records from the 6th century describe nobles eating rice, gruel, or steamed buns in the morning, in the Islamic world, food and water before. Prayer was not only allowed, but sacred, a ritual act of cleanliness and strength. In India, breakfast often began with lentils, rice, or flatbread. The difference is staggering. In the East, morning food was a gift. In Christian Europe, it was a crime. Why? This was not culture. This was control. Think about it. A hungry man prays harder. A hungry man questions less. A hungry man has no strength to rebel. By controlling when people ate, the church controlled how people thought. Obedience enforced not by swords, but by silence over bread. And yet, resistance appeared. A German poem from the 14th century mocked nobles who prayed with empty bellies, only to sneak food before dawn. An English ballad sneered at monks who preached hunger, but feasted in the shadows. City records from Florence even show laws forbidding bakers from opening before sunrise. Why pass such a law? Unless bakers were feeding people against the rules, unless the people were already rebelling with bread. But perhaps the most chilling clue lies in prophecy, one obscure medieval chronicle called Tist, the prophecy of the hours warned, when man eats when he wills, he will break his chains. But when he waits on bells, he is bound forever. Could this prophecy explain the silence? Could this be why manuscripts vanish? Could this be why historians dismiss breakfast as trivia? Because hidden inside trivia is revolution. To eat when you will is to live free. To eat when commanded is to be ruled by the 16th century. Cracks began to appear. Coffee and sugar arrived from distant lands. Tea spread from China to Europe. Suddenly mornings smelled of steam and sweetness. The idea of breakfast returned not as invention, but as rebellion. Commoners began to eat bread with ale in the morning. Laborers demanded fuel before work. Nobles flaunted their wealth with feasts. At dawn, the church script weakened. The bell no longer controlled the stomach. The first meal of the day became a symbol of freedom. But ask yourself this: how many lives were lost to centuries of silence? How many peasants fell in the fields from hunger? How many bodies succumbed to plague because they were denied the strength of food? And how much power was preserved because the people were too weak to resist? Today, we treat breakfast as ordinary: a bowl of cereal, a cup of coffee, toast with jam. But to medieval people, it was rebellion, a quiet act of defiance, a choice that could mark you as sinner or saint. It was the most political meal of the day. So the next time you eat in the morning, remember this: your simple meal is the freedom your ancestors were denied. It is liberty on a plate. It is survival against centuries of control. And it is a reminder that history is never just about what we are told. It is about what we are not allowed to know. And I will leave you with this chilling thought. If history was rewritten once, even in something as ordinary as breakfast, what else could have been rewritten? 2. If the first meal of the day was suppressed for centuries, what other truths still lie buried in secret archives? Subscribe now, because truth, no matter how hidden, always finds its voice.